Today, we're really plunging into quite a story. It perfectly captures this messy mix of music, politics, and, well, public space. We're talking about the controversial Irish trio Kneecap
Uh-huh.
and their recent advertising ban from the London Underground. Now, our sources for this are pretty direct. Recent music news coverage detailing, the reasons for the band's response, which has been pretty fiery. So, our mission today to really unpack the layers here, from that first poster rejection
Mm.
to the deeper legal stuff, the politics swirling around the band,
Mm.
and what it all kind of means for artistic expression in public. This is where it gets really interesting.
It absolutely is. And this whole situation, it's just a fascinating case study, isn't it? Because it really pushes us to look at how public institutions handle art, especially when it touches on sensitive or politically charged things. It really throws that blurry line into sharp focus between free expression and what someone might see as offensive, particularly in a place like the Cube.
Okay, so let's kick off with the headline news. Kneecap barred from advertising on the London Underground. Full stop. And predictably, they didn't waste any time reacting. They immediately called it petty political policing and interference. Hmm. They also made a point of saying, look, we've used the tube for ads before gigs, records, even their film loads of times, no problem. So this felt different to them, new.
Right, that context is important. It wasn't their first rodeo with TFL advertising.
Exactly, and the official reason given. According to the band, the poster was rejected because it was, and I'm quoting here, likely to cause widespread or serious offense to reasonable members of the public on account of the product or service being advertised, the content or design of the advertisement, or by way of implication. Bit of a mouthful.
It's quite broad language.
It is. And then they had this really sharp, kind of clever dig playing on the British Transport Police slogan. Their statement ended. See it, censored.
Hmm. That kind of broad, almost subjective wording likely to cause offense. It's a really powerful lever in public advertising rules. It gives authorities a lot of room to define what crosses the line, often without needing super concrete objective boxes to tick.
So it's more about potential reaction.
Pretty much the potential public reaction, which, can be a very difficult thing to pin down.
Yeah.
Now, that broadness does give them discretion, but you also have to think about the practical side for transport networks. Are they trying to censor? Or are they trying, maybe imperfectly, to keep a space feeling neutral for, well, everyone who uses it? It's a tough balance.
It is. But this too bad ban, okay, it got headlines, but it feels like the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
Because to really get why kneecaps are such a lightning rod right now, we need to talk about something much more serious, something legally very significant. The terror charge against one of the members, Mo Chara.
Yes, that's the crucial background here. It changes the whole context.
So Mo Chara, his real name is Liam Og Ohanaid. He's currently out on unconditional bail,
Mhm.
which I should add means released without restrictions. That can actually seem quite lenient for this kind of charge.
It can, yes. Depends on the specifics assessed by the court at the time.
And the charge itself, it's specifically a terror charge. The allegation is that he displayed a flag supporting a proscribed organization. That means a group the UK government officially lists as terrorists, like Hezbollah,
Hmm.
at their gig at the O2 Forum in Kentish Town, London. This was back in November 2024. And alongside that, there's an allegation he said, up Hamas, up Hezbollah.
And that's exactly where the legal distinction becomes critical. What the prosecutor, Michael Bisgrove, clarified in court is really key here. He made a point of saying the issue is not about Mr. Ohanider supporting Palestinians or criticizing Israel.
Right.
The prosecutor actually confirmed he's well within his rights to do that, like anyone. Political opinion, solidarity that's protected. Instead, the allegation is pinned specifically on displaying the flag of Hezbollah, a proscribed group, while also allegedly saying, up Hamas, up Hezbollah. It's this attempt by the legal system to separate, general political speech from alleged material support or promotion of a banned organization.
A very fine line.
A very fine and often very contentious line, especially when it gets debated in the public sphere outside the courtroom specifics. It can get easily blurred.
So O'Hanady was released on that unconditional bail. His next hearing is scheduled for August 20th. And it's probably worth mentioning the scene at court, he had significant support. His bandmates, Noiso Carrie-Elaine and JJ Odasherde, were there. But also apparently hundreds of supporters outside chanting Free Palestine as he left.
That visible support definitely adds another dimension to the public narrative around the case.
For sure. Now, Kneecap as a band, their response to all this, it's been incredibly strong. Predictably, maybe. They put out this really sourceful statement on Instagram about the terror charge. They flat out denied the offense, said they'd vehemently defend themselves, and again labeled it political policing and called the whole thing a carnival of distraction. They really don't mince words.
I absolutely do not. And look at how they frame it by saying things like, "We are on the right side of history. You are not. We will fight you in court. We will win." They're doing something specific there. They're elevating their own legal battle. It becomes more than just this one charge or even the ad ban.
How so?
Well, they're casting it as this wider ideological conflict, right? A sort of David versus Goliath narrative. And whatever you think of their politics, that's a really powerful way to galvanize support, to connect their personal situation to much bigger global issues.
And they did that very explicitly, didn't they? Linking it to Gaza. They actually said 14,000 babies are about to die of starvation in Gaza, with food sent by the world sitting on the other side of a wall. And once again, the British establishment is focused on us. That's quite a direct comparison to make.
It's incredibly direct and it underlines their whole strategy here. They're positioning themselves not just as, musicians facing charges, but as advocates, as voices for a cause they clearly see as vastly more important than their own legal problems.
So using the attention.
You could say that,
Huh.
effectively using the perception of injustice against them to amplify their broader political message and to challenge the legitimacy of the charges themselves. It's a very deliberate narrative construction.
Okay, so let's shift slightly to the impact on their actual work performing.
Sure.
We know several of their shows got canceled. There was backlash after all this news broke, but then they still played Glastonbury on the West Holtz stage, Saturday, June 28th. And this was despite some members of parliament actually calling for them to be banned from the festival.
Right. And that contrast is really telling, isn't it? It shows how different venues, different platforms respond to controversy. There isn't one single reaction.
Yeah, Glastonbury clearly made a different calculation than, say, some of the other venues or maybe the London Underground.
Exactly. It highlights the varying pressures and perhaps different tolerances for risk or controversy that exist across the cultural landscape, even for the same act facing the same issues.
So let's just recap where we've been in this deep dive. We started with that London Underground ad ban, the broad reasons given for it. Then we dug into the really crucial context, the specific, nuanced terror charge against Mo Chara and the important legal distinctions being drawn there. We also looked at the band's, well, vehement denial, their framing of it all in a much broader political context, and how these events have played out differently across venues, like the canceled shows versus the Glastonbury set.
And I think understanding all those layers, distinguishing between the specific legal accusations and the wider political narrative the band is weaving, it's just vital today, especially with how fast information moves. This whole story really showcases that complex tangle between artistic expression, the legal rules trying to contain it, and ultimately public perception, how things get interpreted, the consequences that follow, and yeah, how artists choose to react when they find themselves in the middle of it all.
So, thinking about all this, maybe
Mhm.
something for you to consider is, what does a case like Kneecaps make you think about the boundaries? The boundaries of free speech, artistic expression, especially in very public spaces. When politics or controversy are baked in, how do organizations decide what counts as offensive? And who gets to define the reasonable members of the public in a society as diverse as ours? What responsibility do artists have for their message? And just as importantly, what responsibility do the platforms, venues, advertisers, festivals have in a world where opinions and information, and sometimes misinformation, spread like wildfire? Lots to think about there.